Hello. All right, I got Devin and Tamika. We've got John and Kanisha here. So we'll see how many more we have. Hello. Devin, I'm not sure that you were the only one that had that issue, so we'll figure out something about that. I think I was supposed to post your password and I didn't do that.
Yeah, I didn't see.
So that's my fault.
I looked on emails and on the.
Yeah. I think I told the people here in class what it was, but I said, you don't need to write it down. I'll post it.
Was it the same path? Was it the same path or test?
It wasn't the same as your first test.
Yeah, I didn't get that either because I didn't use that. I didn't get that.
Yeah, so
I need to pay that.
anyway, I'll make it available, but anyway, that's on me. I'm just trying to keep my 3 classes going and keep my business intact. So I did not realize I was going to have 3 classes this semester. If I had known that, I would have said, no, thank you, 2 is plenty. But anyway, all right, so let me get in here and see. I was in this somewhere. Hello, Brandon. How are you?
Good, how about you?
Doing all right. And I need to go. Here. No. And let me do that since I'm. I think that was the wrong. No, that would have been. I don't know.
We're on technology for success or?
Those are available. I just wanted you guys to have them available. You could have worked on them that last week that we met through this week. I think they're actually due on the 29th. Is that next week? Yeah. And those are just on your own as you have time to go through those. Okay, I need to go into exams. Shocker, nobody submitted their exam. You were supposed to do your Excel exam before class today. Look at him. No, I didn't give the password to y'all, so nobody knows, nobody took it. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to Blackboard right now and I'm going to make an announcement on Blackboard.
Download module 1, it said the top five before my computer.
Yeah. You just have to say keep. It will do that because Access has the capability of doing macros, and macros are what are used a lot of times to embed viruses, Trojans, worms, whatever all of that stuff is that you don't want on your computer. Okay. Okay, so if you're trying to get started with your Access, you must download the start file. Must download the start file for Access. If you don't, you are not going to be able to submit it and get a report. So we have to download from the SAM, which is why I've been trying to get you to do that all semester.
So we're supposed to be doing the Excel exam, right? Or no?
You know, do you guys want to do that right now before we get started with Access?
Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe I read the announcement wrong.
Yeah, well, the announcement was what we were going to do before we had our backlogged day, that when we came back to class and we didn't do what we were supposed to do. So that's the announcement from there, which I just read when I got here too. So what I'll do is we'll go ahead and we can go through Access tonight, and then you guys can just have the week to do your Excel test whenever it works out for you to do it. Does that work okay?
Okay, because mine is locked or closed, it says.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it probably did close because you were supposed to have it done before class today. So I will have to adjust the date on that as well. So All right. So we are going to go ahead and go through access. Wait a minute, I have to change the exam date. If I don't do that now, I will not do that. I'm kind of in the middle of doing that. Oh, I went back too far. That's what my problem is. All right. So this one. Okay, so that should be available to you now. All right, so let me back up here. All right, so as you guys can see on my screen here, even though it's very itty bitty to us here in the classroom, your message up here tells you that you must use the SAM start file provided to receive credit for this assignment. Disregard textbook instructions that ask you to create a new file or to use a file from another location. This is not compatible with Office for Mac, so you have to use Office for Windows to complete this project. And those are given to you at the beginning of each of your messages. And you will have that for all of the access. I don't think if you're using a Mac, you can use that for any of your access projects. Let me get this down here. So we can see this. All right, so I will click on my start button. You will download your start file and you will download your support file, which is a second access database that we're going to use the tables from and import data so we don't do all the data entry. And then you can also go ahead and grab your file name for your expected file that you are going to submit. So you can select that or highlight that and then copy it.
My start file is saying it said it can harm my computer. Do I want to keep it?
Yes, go ahead and keep it. They will always say that anytime you download an access file. We talked about that here in class
Oh.
a little bit earlier.
I missed that.
Probably before, well, it could have been before I got you guys into Zoom. It will say that they will harm your computer, and that's because that you could put macros in the you can create macros in Access, which is where they a lot of times well, or they used to. I really don't keep up on the viruses like I should. But a lot of times that's where they'll create viruses and in a macro type of function. And so that's why you always get that message when you download a start file. All right. So I've gone ahead and opened up my Access file here, but I'm gonna have to make it smaller so we can see it. I have to blow it up here at school because the screen is so tiny that I can't zoom like you normally do to see the work area that we're going to be using. So I just blow the whole thing up and then I have to move it on the screen so we can be able to see it. So what you'll want to do here is go into the file and do save as. And this is a little bit different than what we have seen before. When we're working with databases, we store inside our database things that are called objects. And that's why you see the types, the two different types here. Are we saving a database or are we saving an object? We are saving a database. So that's the one that is selected. And over here, you have different choices of how you want to save them, what format. You're always going to want to use the ACCDB, which is the extension for the Microsoft Access files. And if that is selected, then you can go ahead and click Save. Oh, I probably have, I had probably a table or something open. So if you get that, you can just say, okay. And then you're going to be able to save it to wherever you need to save to. I would recommend saving to a thumb drive if you can. Here on campus, if you just want to save to documents area, we'll just need to make sure we grab that or email it to ourselves whenever we're done. So you have your save as open. You have your file name here. You can do a right click there and paste that correct file name that we want.
Did you say ACCD?
DB.
or DV as in Victor?
No, B as in database, DB.
Okay, let me see, because I don't see it.
This is the name we want to save it as. So it'll be CMF _ vets _ your first and last name. And that's from, if I go back over here into Mind tab, it will say the expected file name is here. And I just copied and pasted that. So I'll talk with you guys a little bit about access while some of you are getting things all situated and saved where you need to. Access is unlike any of the other programs or applications that we've used so far in Microsoft. And it's different from PowerPoint in the same way. You can sit down and open an Excel file, a Word file, a PowerPoint presentation, and you can work on it for 2 hours. And then you're like, oh, hey, probably should save this, right? Good idea to save it. You cannot do that in Access. You have to, at the very beginning, give it a place where the data can be saved. Now, because we downloaded this, we could open it up and we could start working because it's saved in our downloads folder with the name that we opened it up as. If we were to begin an Access database, but by just clicking on the shortcut link on our screen, this is what we would see. Let me make this smaller. So this is what you would see on your screen. So this is your backstage, I think is what it's called, view, basically, where if you need to create a new blank one, they also have several templates that you can use as you scroll through here. And if you follow the textbook specifically, they may ask you in one of these to use a template, but usually you're going to create a blank database. And so you have to give it a file name as the very first thing that you do. And you have to know where you're storing it to, or you can use your browse to browse to the location where you want to save it to. If you don't give it a file name, it will automatically be called database 1. Okay. We are not going to be creating a blank database in this way because we're always going to have our start file that we create. And if you don't use that start file, then you're going to be very upset when you get ready to submit this and it won't accept it. So then you would just hit the create button and it would come up and look very much like what we see here. But it wouldn't have any of these tables over here. Okay. All right, I can't find my corner over here. All right, there we go. I'm finally going to get it where I need it to be. All right. The other thing, just like you've seen it in any of the other documents that we've downloaded this semester, is you will always have this yellow bar that asks you to enable content. You will have to click enable content. I think you might have been able to get away with it in some of the other applications, but just by clicking on the X. But if you don't click enable content when you're working in Access, you won't be able to do some of the calculations that they need us to do, not in this module, but in the next couple. So make sure you click enable content. And then what you will see is the SAM textbook project information. And this is a form. Okay, and I'll talk about the different, this little section over here is called your navigation pane. and you can navigate between all the different objects. And right now what we see is we have a table as an object and we have a form as an object. I'll talk more about those later on. This just tells you information that you can go to AC, the section titled to modify the primary key on AC10, and then tap or click create on the ribbon, and then tap or click the table button under the create tab in the tables group. So you might want to read those instructions. We maybe have skipped over some of those and some of the other applications that we've used. To close out of this form, you need to click on the X that is in the workspace area. Okay, do not click on the X that's up here on the title bar, or you will be kicked out of access. Okay. So I can close out of my form. I'm going to click on the grading info table. And I double clicked on it. So if you're trying to open it, you can double click on it. This is the information that the grading program is looking for, so that it can grade your access file. You probably have been using blank files sometimes for Word and Excel. I get a little report that says you didn't use a start file, but it would at least let you submit them. With Access, it won't let you submit them or get a grade for them. So you just need to make sure that this has your name and information on it, because the user ID and stuff, these are matched up with your login information. All right, and we don't need, whoops, what am I doing here? Admit all. Okay, Miles is in, so I don't know what that is. All right, so these tables and forms that are here, you won't need to do anything with, but you don't want to delete them, because if you don't have that table, that grading info table, then you're not going to get graded like you want to get graded. Just a little bit about this window, and you'll have to keep in mind that I've blown mine up and then I've scrunched it down. So your ribbons are going to have a lot more, they're going to be a lot more wide spread out. So you'll see things that I don't see, that I'm going to have to use more of the drop down windows for. I'm not seeing any of that right now, but so you may not see everything that you may see more on your screen than I see on mine. So you will notice that the tabs that we have quite different names than we've had before. The home is where you can do a lot of things. You'll be on the home ribbon quite a bit. You'll be on the create ribbon quite a bit here at the beginning, where we're needing to create our different objects. The external data tab is what you will use whenever you're importing stuff from another Excel spreadsheet, another Access database. You can also import from a Word document. And then if you need to export something, you'll be able to do that here. The database tools we only use for this relationship option, and that I think that's in module 3, 2 or 3, but I think it's 3. So mostly you're going to use the home and the create tabs as you go through here. Below the ribbon, you have that navigation pane. This can be, you can use this shutter bar button to open and close that so that you don't, so that you can see more of your workspace area. Down on the status bar, right now mine says ready. And I know it's kind of down at the bottom, so you may not be able to see it unless you're in the right angle. So there will be some other information down there. So I'll try to point that out, to that things that will be helpful as you look through those areas. There are two main views that we're going to be using in our database. One is called Datasheet View. Datasheet View is where you're going to be viewing your data. It's what it would look like if you were going to print it. The other is called Design View. Design View is kind of like the back side of it, where you're creating or editing the way that the data will look in the Datasheet View. When I first started learning Access, you could only use the Design View to create forms, tables, reports. They've made it easier for people that haven't learned how to do it that way, to be able to create in Datasheet View. So we're going to learn both ways of how to create in Datasheet View and in Design View. You will notice here on the home ribbon that you have a view button. If I just open this up, that way it'll be available for me. So your view button, right now I'm in what's called Datasheet View. It looks like an Excel spreadsheet, rows and columns, right? Okay, so you'll see my view button has the triangle and the pencil and the ruler. When you see that button, and you click on it, that takes you to what's called the Design View. So if I click on the Design View, this is what it looks like over on the design side. And usually you see more of this top portion here where the field name and the data type is, but because I've got this rearranged funny, you're seeing more of what's called the field properties down here. We will talk more about that later, but this is how the design view of a table looks. When you're in Design View, you'll see that the view button changes to what looks like a little chart or a table or a spreadsheet with rows and columns. You can just click on that and it'll take you back to that Datasheet View. While we are looking here at rows and columns, rows are filled with what are called records. So a record is a row of information that contains everything we need to know about a company, a client, a vendor, or whatever it is we're keeping in our database. That row is a record. Each column represents what are called fields. Okay, so a field is one piece of a record. So you'll see here, the first name is obviously the first name of our customer, vendor, client, whatever. So each column is a field. That's the field names are listed in the top row of our Datasheet View. So you'll see the top row is gray. And then you do have alternating colors as you go down and add information. I think that gray, no, maybe that's the same. But your top row will have the little arrows by it that you can do some sorting and other stuff that we'll talk about later on. So you need to know the difference between rows and columns, or records and fields. Kind of start thinking about it in records and fields. There are some things, some characters that you cannot use when naming files or naming objects. So you're not able to use periods, exclamation points, accent graves, or square brackets. You can use most of the punctuation symbols, but not all of them. Field names can have up to 64 characters in them. You don't need to know all this. I'm just kind of throwing this out there so you have an idea of what that is. You will notice a lot of times when you open up an Excel or an Access database that our field name here, first name, most of us that have taught people how to type properly would include a space between those. If you're a database person, you learn very quickly that those spaces can cause issues in how things run and run queries and create things, and you get weird ampersand signs or % signs in those. So you'll also see a lot of times where they'll use an underscore. So you can see the differentiation between a first and name. But most of the time they just put them together like this and capitalize the second word. So you'll see that a lot. I'm not very good at doing that, so I still use spaces a lot. Watch that as you're having to type field names. Make sure you match exactly, because it's just like an Excel spreadsheet. If you don't name the sheet right, if you don't name the field right, then it's not going to recognize it and you'll get counted off for not having it there. So spelling is still very important. Okay, so we need to have each table, whoops, I don't want to do that. We need to have, I know, just okay. I don't know what it's wanting me to do. Maybe I'll do that. Okay. I don't know what I clicked on. I clicked on something and it was wanting me to, it was, well, we'll talk about this in module 3. I'm not going to go into it right now, but if you ever get a message like that, it is because what I'm getting ready to talk about is something that's called your primary key or a unique identifier. Each table needs to have one field that has, or each table needs to have one field that would be called its unique identifier. So if you think of the school here, what is your unique identifier to the school, MCC? Your student ID number. Okay, so that's unique to each of you. Nobody should have the same student ID number that you have. Okay, if we are keeping a database for inventory purposes, each piece of inventory might have a stock number. So that would be what differentiates that piece of stock from all the others. So we have to have one field that is called our unique identifier, and it is referred to as the primary key. By default, and I don't like this, but it's how it is. By default, when you create a table in Datasheet View, which is what we're going to do here in just a little bit, it will create this field called ID. ID is an auto number field. So what that means is each time that you get to a new record that you're putting in, it will start at 1, the next one will be called 2 and 3 and so on. It will always give you the next number if you're working with an auto ID field. So when we create our database table, our table in Datasheet View, it will already have a field named auto ID or named ID or auto ID. And so if you keep that field, then it's going to name each field 1, 2, 3, 4 as you go down. We are asked to change that auto ID field name to a primary key, or I don't know what we call it. But we also have to change what's called the data type from the auto number to probably a short text. So the data type changes the way data is accepted into each of the fields. The main ones we're going to work with are called short text. The short text data type is just that. It's text that could contain all of your characters, 0 through 9, all the letters of the alphabet, some punctuation, up to 255 characters. You will probably never have a field named more than, that's close to 255 characters. You also have a data type of a number. The number data type is used for fields where you might do some calculations, some mathematical operations, okay? The currency field will be used for those fields that contain monetary values. So maybe you can see the difference between text, numeric values that are done with calculations, and currency. So that is how data will be represented in each of the different fields. There's some others, but I'm not going to go into those just yet. There is also a table in your textbook that talks about additional ones that we do not use in this class, but if you take the 215 class, you will use some of those. We are going to be putting in a number field, and in your textbook there's a table 1-2 that gives you information on field sizes that are available for numbers that we'll be using. And you're going to be asked to set the field size to single or double or integer. And you're going to be, what does that mean? This table will hopefully explain that a little bit better to you. Okay, so you guys ready to get started creating? Yes? Okay. So I'm going to close out. Oh, I'll show you the other thing. You can right click on your tab up here for this table and just close that particular table. Or if you have multiple ones open, you can close everything. So we are going to create our first data sheet, or our first table in Datasheet View. So we will go, yeah.
Am I clicking on creating?
Yes.
Blank form?
Yeah, but no, we're going to go to create. And then we want to create a table. You'll see that the create is broken up into different sections. We can create tables, queries, forms, or reports. And we are going to create a table. And if you use the first option here, you'll create the table in Datasheet View. If you want to create a table in Design View, you would click the second one. But we're going to create in Datasheet View. Once you have selected that you want to create in Datasheet View, you will see that you have a couple of other tabs that pop up here. So our table tools, we have a fields tab and we have a table tab. So these are some different options we have of working with our table now that we're creating. You'll notice that our table is labeled table 1. We will change that here in just a little bit. You'll notice that the first field is called ID. And if I click here where it says new, my ID field is highlighted. And if you look up here in the formatting section, you should be there because it's in table tools fields and then the formatting section. This is set to auto number. And this is how you'll have to change this. And you'll have to do this in the homework one that you do too. So make sure that you get in and get this changed. A lot of people just ignore this step, and instead of changing the field name and the preferences of it, they'll just add a new field. Well, then Sam doesn't like that and it gets all messed up. So we are going to set this to short text. So we can click here where it says auto number and just change it to short text. And then if you right click on the ID cell, you will see an option to rename the field down at the very bottom of that shortcut. You can also click on the name and caption here in the field in the properties. So right now my name is just called ID, and I want to change that so that it is now called owner ID. So you can click in front of the I if you want. And let me make sure. Yeah, they do put a space in here. Okay, so I'm going to click on my OK button here. Now, they ask us to click in the row below the field name that we just set. And that lets us still make adjustments to this particular field. So not only did we need to change it to short text, but we're also going to change the field size. Our owner ID is only going to be up to 5 characters. So we don't want to leave the field size at 255. We just want to set it to 5 so that if we do error with data entry, you'll be like, okay, I was supposed to end with 6 and I'm not able to put in number 6. Then you probably typed in an extra number somewhere else. So it helps cut down on data entry errors by changing your field size. All right, I'm going to go back up to the name and caption because that's where I changed my name instead of right clicking here. But we are going to add in the caption O_ID. So this is going to let us abbreviate that. The caption is what will actually show up in the datasheet view, or when we're doing printing, that's what will show up. Then in our description, they have us add the description of this field is going to be the unique, if I can spell it, unique identifier of pet owner. Now notice there's no punctuation here. Make sure you've spelled everything properly, capitalized everything properly. And then you can click the OK button. You will see that your field name has now changed to O_ID because the caption overwrites the field name. The field name is still called owner ID, but the caption is what shows up. What else was I gonna tell you about that? Oh, yes. Over here in your field validation, you'll see that this is set to unique. But that's not what I'm looking for. Okay, I'm gonna pop over into design view. Because that's where you'll see what I'm wanting. And we'll see this when we go into design view. I don't know how to set this to be the primary key when we're working in Datasheet View. I think you have to go to the design view if you want to be able to change the primary key field. But what I want you to see here in owner ID is that there is a little key out here in the row selector, this little gray box here, column. This is your row selector. So if you click in that, it selects your entire row. So you'll see that little key there, and that lets you know that this is the field that is the primary key field. If you did not get your field set as the primary key, then it will not have that key. And you will see that it's blank up here. You can click on the primary key and then you'll see that it's highlighted as a primary key and that little key shows up. So if you accidentally add a field instead of adjusting the auto ID field, then you can just delete the auto ID field. But to get your primary key set, you'll have to be in design view to be able to do that. I'll show you also while we're here, we typed in the description, unique identifier of pet owner. That shows up here in design view. If you look down in the field properties area, you'll see that the field size is 5 and the caption is O_ID. So you can see this in both places. You're gonna have to decide which way you like working with creating a table better. And we'll create a table in design view or do some changes to it in design view. But all right, so this is going to tell me that I have to save my table. That's because I clicked around and made some changes of some kind. So I'll just say yes. And so now I'm back into Datasheet View. Okay, so one thing I forgot to tell you earlier, and I meant to, when I was talking about you have to have a place to save your database, that is because as you type data in your database, as you edit data in your database, all of your data is automatically saved for you. That is why you have to have a location where it's being saved to. You can't just create your database and then go, oh, hey, a couple hours later, I probably should save this like you do in your other applications. And everything we've done up until this point is not something that's been auto-saved. It's only when we start putting in data or working with the data. So you'll see as you go back and forth between Datasheet View and Design View that you're going to get those little messages like I had that said you must save your table first. That's because you've made some type of a formatting change to it. And those things are not saved automatically. All right, so our next field name is going to be owner's first name. And I'm going to go back to table 1-3. All right, so my next field, we're not putting a description in any of the rest of these. We're just going to have field name, data type, and field size. Okay. So our field name is going to be owner first name. And that is all, those are 3 separate words. So you'll have to type those. Make sure they're all separate. Oh, yeah, here it is. I thought there was one over here. So you'll want to make sure that there are spaces between these. But to put, get it fast enough. All right, so to put in your next field name, you're going to click where it says click to add. And then we want this to be a short text. And then where it says field name, it's in black. Since it's highlighted, we're just going to be able to type right over that. Owner first name. Now, they ask you to click right below the owner first name again. And when you do that, you actually, your cursor goes back to the first column. So you'll have to click again on owner first. Or owner first name. And then you'll be able to go into your fields. And this is where you can change the field size to 50. And then you're ready to click where it says click to add. And these that we're adding right now are all going to be short text. So we'll type in short text, and then we're going to do owner last name. And then this is also going to be set to 50 field size. So I'm just going to expand these so you guys can see everything I'm typing in. When you want to expand a column, it's just like we did in Excel. You can go to the border between the two columns, and when you double click, it will adjust the size so that you can see the longest thing in that column. So our next one is short text as well, and this is going to be your street. And this field size we're going to leave at 255. We'll do the next one is short text. And this is going to be owner city. This field size is going to be set to 50. Our next is short text, and this is going to be owner state. This field size will be 2. After owner state, we have owner postal code. And this we're going to set to 9. Our next one will be home phone. What?
I got on the street, still feel on the first name, everything else, and still one.
Okay. Okay, so you have to right click on it. Sorry, where it says click to add. Are you choosing short text?
Yeah.
Okay, why?
Owner first name, field 1, owner street, field 2, and your minus is field 3. Yeah. Owner post.
So you have owner name.
On the first name, then the next one goes to the last name, they just put field 1 down, then it skipped over there and put on the street. The next one has field 2.
Okay, there's something that you're doing. I can't remember what it is that causes it to do that. So where it says field one for your owner name, whichever one is wrong. Go back to it, do a right click and go down to rename. And then when it's all in black and highlighted with that black, then just type over it with the correct. And maybe you're pressing tab or enter at that point instead of, you just do click.
Over to the next one and clicking the field.
Try clicking right below it instead of going to the next one over. Try clicking right below the one that you just created in that same column.
Right.
I don't know, but I know that there's something that we do, and I can't remember what it is that happens.
Who was the field size for home phone?
For home phone, yeah, I think I didn't get there. It's 25. Mhm. And our next one is mobile phone, and that is also going to be, what did I do? Mobile phone. That's also going to be 9 characters, or I mean 25 characters. And then your last one is going to be email address. And your email address is going to be set to 50 for the field size. I know, I'm trying to. All right, so what I did is I went through here and I put your field size in this first row. So owner first name should be 50. The last name should be 50. The street should be 255. The owner city should be 20. The owner state should be 2. Owner postal code is 9. The home phone and the mobile phone are both 25, and then the email address is 50. So don't put those numbers in there where I have them. That's just for you to double check yourself and make sure that your field sizes are set where they need to be. All right, how you guys all doing? You got that? Okay. So I'm going to go over here. And I'm just gonna get rid of that data that I put in there. In your textbook, section 1-5C, it talks about making changes to the structure. If you get a field in the wrong order, if you have a field name that's incorrect and you need to rename it, or make adjustments to the name, you can always do your rename. You can, if you need to insert, because you've left one out, you'll see you can right click and do insert field. If you got one in that you want to get rid of, you can do your delete field. So there's all kinds of ways that you can do and move stuff around without having to restart and make a whole new table. All right, we want to save this as with the name owners. So it's going to be a table. So it will show up over here in our navigation pane in the table section. Right now it's just there as table 1. But when we go to close out of a table, if it hasn't been saved yet, you will get a little message that says save as table 1 and then the name of it. But most people would rather do like, I want to save this table. So I'm going to go up to file and do save. Did you guys get the little box that says what's your file? What do you want to save it as? No, did you? Okay, so maybe we have to go to save as.
Oh, if I didn't exit out of it, so I just was going to say that.
Okay, so if we go to save as, we're going to save the object as, and then over here in the file type, it'll be the save object as well, which should be the ones that's already selected, and then you can just do save. And then this is where you get the little message that says, what do you want to name this? Right now, it's just called copy of table 1. I'm going to call it owner. Owners. You're not adding the word table after it. A lot of people do that and then they get counted off for that as well. So we can click the OK button. And now our tab up here that says owners is also showing up over here in our table section. Do any of you have a table 1? Okay, we shouldn't have a table 1, but when I went back and forth between mine earlier, I had to save it. And so I have a table 1 and then I just resaved it as a different table name, which is now owners. So what we're going to do, we don't need this table 1 and it may just mess things up. So we're going to right click on it. And then we are just going to delete it. And you can say yes, because yes, we do want to get rid of it. You can try hitting the undo button. Yes, it will put it back. Okay, you do have an undo button. The undo button in Access is very, very limited. There are not very many things that you can undo in Access, but evidently we can undo deleting a table. All right, so we're going to go over to Design View and see what this table looks like in Design View. So we'll come up to our view button. We'll move over to Design View. And I really think there's a way I can move this field properties down, but maybe not. So I'm just going to drag this down. So you can see here that you have the field name showing that all of the data types are short text. There's a description, and notice it says optional, and it will still say optional when you get ready to do the homework project for this, but it's not optional for the homework project. If they tell you to type something in as a unique identifier, you need to type it in as a unique identifier. Or you need to type it in as a description. Then you'll look at the field properties down below. And like I showed you earlier, the owner ID, the field size is 5. The caption is O_ID. So as you go down through the rest of these, you'll see basically the only thing you're going to see down there is the field size, because that's the only change that you made. Now, here is also a place where if you see, oops, I misspelled something, you can go in there, move your cursor with your arrows back and forth, make a change to the name of your field. Now, like I said earlier, I learned to create tables in this view. And to me, if I'm matching up what the textbook shows me, because the version in the textbook has it laid out just like this. The first column is all the field names. The second column has the data type. And the third column has whether it's listed as, does it need a description? It will also tell you in that column if it's a unique identifier, or if you need to do make changes in the field properties, it will tell you that as well. So like I said, I like working in the design view when I'm creating a table. And there are some things you just have to do in the design view. That is for the owner postal code. That's so that you have to make sure of what fields you're in up here to make sure the field properties below match up. So you have to go through each one of them individually to make sure they match up. And that's probably easier to do in the datasheet view, really, is to check that type of stuff. Yes.
Okay, Oman, if you say like under owner
It says what?
ID,
New.
they got this, okay.
Over here.
Yes.
That we'll see. We're gonna get ready to add something in there, so it probably will go away. I think mine said that, and then I typed over it, and then I deleted it. So,
So I can-
let me see. Oh, that's because you got it open. So go up to table 1 and just close it. So then, this one is probably not letting you get rid of it because the OID is the primary key field, and you have to have something in the primary key field to be able to move past that, which we're going to put something in there in just a second. So you'll be okay. We'll change it up for you. So as we get ready to type data in here, I want you to take a look at the row selector. You notice how there's a little asterisk there? That asterisk is identifying that it is a new record. And I'm going to pull this up here. Okay. Not me that either. All right. So what I did is I pulled this up here so we can see the status bar. I told you earlier I'd talk with you a little bit about the status bar. So this is our these are our navigation buttons. And quite honestly, I probably don't use these very often, but they will have us use them as we go through some of this. It's probably more helpful when you have hundreds and hundreds of fields in your database or records in your database. Since we're only going to be working with less than 20 on all of these, it's probably not going to be too beneficial to you. But you'll see the asterisk here, and then there is it's grayed out. This one right here is a new blank record. And it kind of has that same asterisk like is there, but it is in yellow. Yeah, and I think this would be yellow too. So to add a new record. But since I'm already in doing that, then those are kind of grayed out. The records, this is just like most of you guys probably have never used a cassette player, but play goes to the next one. The one to the left goes to the previous record. The one with the line goes all the way to the beginning or all the way to the end, whichever way you're going. So those are those little symbols there. It tells you about that in your textbook, so you can read about those. But I wanted to point those out because we will use those at some point as we go through here. So we're going to add a couple of records here. So our first one is capital O-1. And this is Ted, S-A-B-U-S. I will tell you right now, when you're entering these two records, chances are very good that something is going to go wrong. You've hit a space bar, you've added a period, you've left out a period, that you're going to get counted off for this in SAM. Okay, what I look for is that, yes, you do have the two records put in there. If I can see a typing error, I will say, hey, that's probably where it is, but don't stress. It's kind of like module 2 of Word where we type those paragraphs and it's like you typed form instead of from. Those are things that are kind of difficult to see. It is important that you get data in there correctly. But we also are human. This is what I usually do. I tab when I'm supposed to space or something.
And then West Pioneer Road. What is West Pioneer?
West Pioneer Road. 7735. Yes.
I'm trying to put in the only street and don't let me go 46, or 46.
Okay, so when you're in your owner street, if you go to the fields tab, what is your field size? That's why. So that should be 255. Yep. All right, so I'm going to make these smaller so you can't see the field names, but we can see the data that's supposed to be going in those. And I'll probably have to adjust them for this next person.
And in that OID, is still we start to type.
It's not letting you put anything in on those. Oh, okay. Yeah, because you still have that auto number. Go up there where it says auto number and change it to short text. Yeah. And then go to row 2 where it says number 2. You can just delete that if you want to, or you can put the next one in there if you want. I didn't go back far enough. I've got O-2 in the owner's first name. So I need to scroll back over here a little bit. We'll try that again. So this is Stephen Nguyen. My husband tells me that's spelled, that's pronounced Win. I'm like, okay. Okay, so the one thing I forgot to tell you as we were doing this is, so I'm just starting a third one here. We're not going to add a third one, but I want you to notice in the row selector column out here by my O3, there's a little pencil icon. When you see that pencil icon, that is letting you know that data is being written. And once that pencil icon disappears when you go to the next row, then that data has been saved. So this is where it comes in, where your data that you're putting in is being saved all the time once you're doing the data entry. So what happens is, let's say that I'm ready to close out of this table and go on to something else. So I could come up here and I can do close, and you get this message that says, do you want to save changes? And then notice the rest of it. It says, to the layout of the table owner, table owners. That is because I've changed the layout, which means the structure, I've changed the column widths. You guys may not have done that yet. In a next couple of steps, it does teach you that you can go through and do the double clicking to expand the columns as much as you need so that you can see them. So if you haven't done that, you can go ahead and use your double click to open up all of those as wide as they need to be. And then when you get ready to close out, or you'll want to, you can either save your table first because you know you've made changes to the structure. Or when you just try to close out of it, it will ask you if you want to save structural changes. So to save something that's already been named and saved as an object, you can click the save icon up here. I find it still interesting that they use the floppy disk icon for saving because nobody's used floppy disks for years, but that's still the save icon. So, so then we can close out of that table that we've done, got all that information put in. Yeah.
I need to get the E off that last one.
Oh, okay.
It was just the first initial, then the last.
S is the first initial, and then the last name, Nguyen. Nguyen.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. All right, so we are just moving right along here. We are going to create a table in design view, but I will just tell you this, we're just going to create the fields, and then we're going to use that file that we have, that other file that we downloaded to import data from those tables. So this time we're going to go into design view and create our table. So from the beginning, we'll have to click on the create tab. And then we want to create a table in design view. And so our first field name, question?
What did you just go right now?
Go to create. And then once you're in create, you'll see that right below the word create is table design. And that's where we're going to go to create this next table.
How do you pull out the owner's table?
You could actually still have the owner tables open if you want to, but
I see that.
yeah. All right, so you will notice when you're creating blank from the table design view, that there's not a row selector that has the primary key, golden key in it. So we're going to have to make sure we label that. So our first field name here is going to be patient ID. And then we need to click on our, I went back to my create tab, but you should have your design tab open over here. So in your design tab, you'll see the primary key, and you can click on that and it will show that golden key for you over there. Okay, now it will automatically put in short text as your data type, and that is fine. That's what we want to have it as. And we'll click, do they have us? Yeah. All right, I'm just going to go ahead. We're going to type in the rest of those fields. They all have a short text as a data type. So our second field is, I can't see, patient name. You can either press your tab key or press your enter key to keep moving down to the next row, or you can use your down arrow key. All right, so once you have this created, then we are going to change our view back to our design view, but we have to save this. And I think the name of this is supposed to be patients. Yeah. So we can click the save button up here. We want to save this table as PATIENTS, patients. PATIENTS. I have problems with that one sometimes. Now we're going to flip over to design view, and we're going to enter data for 3 animals. So our patient ID is going to be C-1. This animal's name is Paws, P-A-W-S. It is a feline. It is a calico. And the owner is O, capital O-2. Okay, so those are the only 3 patients that we're going to put in right now. I'm going to flip back to the design view. Because I want to, in the patient ID field and the owner ID, you're supposed to have those capitalized, right? The capital O and the capital F or C. But our society and our younger students have gotten very lazy with using the shift key because it does it for us so many times, but not always. So we're going to set this up so that it just automatically capitalizes those letters for us. And the way you do that is we're going to be in the patient ID field, go down to the 2nd row in our properties, which you can barely see. So here's my 2nd row where it says format, and I'm going to type a greater than sign. So shift and the period puts a greater than sign there. Now, yeah, I've got to save it. Okay. Now, if I come back over here and let's say I'm going to type in a new person, F, our animal. If I do lowercase f-3 and I tab over, it changes that to capital letter for me. Okay, so that is kind of nice. So let me get out of this. I'm going to delete this record. And then I'm going to pop back over to design view and we're going to go to the owner ID and you're going to do the same thing. Shift and the period to get the greater than sign for your owner ID. And you can do this to your other table if you want to also. Not that you're going to be doing a lot of data entry in either one of them from this point on. But if you have to, you won't have to use that capitalization. So make it too easy for y'all. They do have you resize this before you close out of it. Also, I always forget to save when I make changes. So, but you can go through and double click your columns before you close out of your table. And then just save that and we'll go ahead and close out of our patients table. And the reason I want you to close out of it is because we are going to import that other database that we downloaded, and you need to have your table closed in order for us to import to it.
You just press save at the top instead of doing save as. But
Mhm. No, you don't want to delete it. Close it. Yes. Yes, okay. All right, so to put in our new database, you should have downloaded that other database, what's it called? File that,
The access report.
support file, thank you, yes. Should have downloaded that support file. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our external data tab. And then in our import section, we're gonna do new data source. And we can do from a, no, we're gonna do from a database. And so it would have to be an access. Now, this is where you need to make sure you know where this file has been stored. For most of it, this is going to be in that downloads or that documents file where it automatically goes when we download stuff. So what we have to do is we just have to navigate to that location. So we'll go to browse. And I'm going to go to my downloads. So here's my support. Did you guys all find it? Once you have your support file there, you can click open. And then you'll just need to follow the directions in your textbook or your instructions that you're given to make sure you click the correct thing. But we're going to import tables, queries, forms, reports, macros, and modules into the current database. We're not going to link. So you should still have this radio dot selected. We'll click the OK button. And now here you get to choose what exactly is it that you're wanting to import. We are going to choose the select all. And that's going to select all of these tables for us: appointments, treatment, veterinarians.
Mine didn't have the, I just have to do, I don't know.
You got what?
I don't got the way you just clicked on, download on the support. Right.
Okay,
I
so
have
you,
the new Microsoft access.
yeah, that's what I did log in.
You have that.
so did you go to external data
Yeah,
and then you went to new source?
yeah,
And then did you choose from database?
yep, the database, and I'm right here on my download.
Okay,
This new Microsoft. See, I don't got the support. Please see.
oh, okay, you don't see the support. Okay,
Maybe I
so
didn't download it.
if you, yeah, I don't know where it might have gone. So you can just go back to your Mind tab and download that support file. You may have to log back in though, if you, so. But then once you have that downloaded, you should find that probably in your downloads. Did you find it now? Or you still?
Yeah.
All right, so did you guys get those all imported? Then. All right, so you'll see once it's imported, you'll get the message that says, do you want to save the import steps? If you were going to be importing stuff over and over and over again, you might want to save those steps. We don't need to do that. We can just close out of it here. But you'll see those tables, patients, treatment costs, and veterinarians, and appointments. Those have all, not patients, appointments, treatment costs, and veterinarians have all populated here. Hash, did you get that? You good? Did you get your tables imported?
You know, trying to see that. Would you go to there on that table? Like mine is appointments, treatment costs, and veterinarian.
When you open up. Oh, okay. So this is your support file. That you
Right.
okay, you don't need to open it.
Okay.
So is this the one that you were working on?
Yeah,
that
that's
has
all
your
the work.
tables? Okay, so this is where you want to begin, and this is where you're going to, for your external data, you're going to go to new data source. And you're going to run database. And then here's where you're going to browse for. Mhm. Mhm. And then click OK. So you're going to select all of this, and then select all. And then you see those that you have in there have been imported into this database.
All right, thank you.
Yep. All right, so we have created two tables. We did one in Datasheet View, we did one in Design View. And then we've imported tables from our support file. So we have multiple tables created. Tables are just one of the types of objects that we have in databases. So you'll see forms is another one that we have. Tables, queries, forms, and reports. These are all the different ones. So we're going to go through the rest of this module and we're going to create some of each of those, just so you kind of have an idea of how to do that. Some of them are going to be very simple, very easy. Module 2, the entire module is on doing queries. Queries is a funny word that you kind of have to get used to using and access. Queries are where you are asking questions of your database. So you're like, I need to know whatever, whatever, whatever. And then you have to type it in the way that you need to, so Access can spit back out all the people that have cats, all the owners that have cats that we treat or whatever. So that's what module 2 will be doing, all of those different types of information. So we'll go through, we'll create queries, forms, and a report here, and then we'll pretty much be done. There's some things to do, like compacting and repairing databases. Sometimes databases get large, so it's a good idea to know how to do that. It will not let you submit if your database is too large. I had somebody had problems with that last semester. I don't remember why we had problems with that, but Okay, did I skip the creating using a query? I went past. Okay, creating queries. Okay, so we're going to use a simple query wizard to create our query tonight. So I'm going to move out of this. So go to create, and you'll see that in the query section, you have a query wizard and you have query design. So your query wizard is what we'll use. This is going to be just one of those step through things that lets you pick what you want in your query. We're just going to use the simple query wizard. In module 3, we'll learn to use this crosstab query. But for now, we'll just use this one. And you have to pick which table it is that you want to use. So we are going to want to use our the owners table. If you use your drop down arrow here, you'll see all of your tables that are listed here. Here's your query that will be for the grading summary report display. But we just want to make sure we have the owners table selected. You'll see all the fields that we put in for that. And then we are going to select the fields that we're going to move over. So we are not going to use owner ID. We'll start with their first name. As you move a field over, it is removed from the available fields. So we went first name, last name, street, city, state, and postal code. So on the left-hand side, you should have owner ID, home phone, mobile phone, and email address left. If that is correct, you could click your next button. Also, sometimes it might be easier to use your double arrows. It puts everything over there. If you know you just need to put 1 or 2 back, you can move everything over and then just use the back arrow key to move stuff back over. So the title that we want is going to probably be owner's query because that's what they usually do. I just want to make sure yes, owner's query, and then we can click finish. So here's our query. So instead of having all their phone numbers and everything, we just have this specific information pulled out from them. So it's a very simple query. You know, you may be needing somebody to do mailings to them where they don't need any of that other information. So you could print this, give it to them, and they can go address stuff from that. I'm going to change this design or this view. You have to be on the home or the it looks like in this one you can only be on the home. Yeah. When we were working with tables, it was home and something else. We're the only 2 you can be on where you'll see the view button that you can flip back and forth from. I'm going to flip over to the design view. I know we haven't talked about the design view yet, but we will more later on. As your textbook talks about using the run button. And that's all I'm going to talk about. We'll talk more about the design view of this later on, but you'll see this is your run button. And this is what you'll push once you have your query all set up in design view. You can use the run button, and that's what gives you your results of the query that you put in there. So if you are reading through and you see the run button, you didn't use that because we use the wizard and it just did it for us automatically. Now, this one I want you to pay attention to carefully because this one is really fast and you may miss it. So we're going to create a form based on the owners table. So I can close out of this query. I'm going to have my owners table highlighted. I'm not going to double click and open it up. I'm just going to have it highlighted. And I'm going to come up here to create. And I just want to create a form. And voila, your form's created. Okay. So basically it takes every field that you have in that table and it puts it into a form, a version of it in the form. Now, the thing that's nice about this is, oh, yeah, so you have your owner's table selected and you come up to create and you just click the form button. And it creates that form for you. Form. So the nice thing about this is a lot of people use this for their data entry, like entry page. If you're having to do data entry, you would much rather do it in a form version than a data sheet version, because that data sheet version, you got all those rows. So that's why forms are created. Brandon?
All my forms, they're not there, like the owner, everything, all that right there, like my tables and everything. No, it's not good. I don't know.
You have opened up something different. Okay. All right, you got it. Did you just open something up? No, did you close something?
Just, that's the owners,
Oh, I know. And then at the very bottom. Okay, so this is what happened the first time I taught Access 20 some years ago. I had a student that typed in all their stuff and they opened up their table and they're like, I only have like 7 things here and we have like 50 records. And they could only see 7. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to recreate. And that was when you had to type everything back in and everything. And I, for some reason, looked down and I caught it said filtered. So all their data was still there, but they had somehow been able to save the table or close the table with it being filtered. So when they opened it back up, all they saw were those 7 things that were filtered from that table instead of all of it. So we finally figured that out. And that's what Brandon had done. Over here, he had clicked on forms. And so all he was seeing was just the one form that was there. And he's like, what happened to the rest of it? So that's why. So and you can play around with this, but you can see, if you do it by table and related views, I think that's a little more difficult to read because, this is your owner's table. And so everything with the owner's table is here, everything with the patients by your point. And so I find that a little more challenging to read, but typically it's done by object type, and then all of your objects are showing. So if you're missing something, try that. Okay, so what I want to point out to you here is you'll see that the owners has a yellow box around it. If I click on any of these others, they get a yellow box around them. So now for our form, we have an additional view, and this is called our layout view. Our layout view is handy because it allows us to edit while we can see our data. Okay, so in previous versions, we would have to go to our design view and we could make changes to these, the size of these. But if we brought them back so that it's the owner first name is the longest we can see, and then we change back to our form view, well then our address has been moved down onto 2 rows. So the nice thing about the layout view where you see this is you're able to make changes structurally to it, but you can still see the data. So you know what size to make those. So you can make sizing changes. I think you can, oops.
I'm in the way I do mine is all straight down.
Okay, and that is because you had a bigger screen. My window was so small so that it made it look like that. So if I want my email address to be over here underneath my regular address, I can move it there. So you can do a lot of different things with it in this layout view, but you can still see data. Now, this does not necessarily mean that all of our data in every owner is going to fit in the sizes that we've made. But I can flip through and see, yep, I can see that. But that's just your form view. It's really easy to make and really easy to maneuver around if in that layout view. All right, so what else? I did save. Oh, hold on. We're supposed to save this as owner's form. So since I've already saved this as owners, what I would suggest doing is just closing this. And then over here in my form, renaming. So I can just type owners or space after owners and then type form in, press your enter key, and you've got it saved as it needs to be. Okay, so then we'll do a report. And again, we're going to use the report wizard. So we want to have the owners table selected because we're going to make our report based on that. We'll go to create and we're going to do report wizard. And I always suggest to students to use the report wizard when creating a report. They've made it a little bit easier to create a report in report design view, but I always suggest start with the wizard and then you can make adjustments to it. So we'll do the wizard, and because we have the owners table selected, that's what will pop up over here. And then we are going to put in first, last, street, and city, and state. First, last, wait a minute. Street, city, and state. Street, whoops. First, last, street, city, state. Okay, got it. All right, so then it's asking if you want to do any grouping levels. We are not going to do any grouping levels. This would be like if you have customers from, where are they, in Colorado? If you want to split up your customers from Colorado and Utah, you could group by those 2 states. And then within that, you could do them alphabetically based on the name of the cat or dog or whatever. But we're not going to do any, so we're just going to click next. And this is where you would put sorting. And we're not going to do any sorting, so we'll click next. This screen is a little more challenging to kind of figure out. It's how you want the report to be laid out. So right now it's tabular. Each tab has a column that's gone in. If you do columnar, you're going to have the tabs. That's kind of what mine looked like. I'm sorry, not the tabs. The field names are what's in the darker colors, and then the data is what's in the lighter columns there. So that kind of lets you know. And then justify just kind of gives it So like the first little part there would be the first field, and the next part would be the second field, and so on. But we're gonna use the tabular, and we're gonna make sure it's in portrait. And we'll click the next button. And they have us do owner's report. So we'll come up here and type report. And then we can finish, and it will pop up and show us what this report's going to look like. So I'm going to make mine a little bit smaller here so you can kind of see its portrait. I've got my my two owners listed here, and that information that we wanted: city, state, zip, whatever. So this is what would print out if we were to print it. The one thing I will point out on reports and access, they always have page numbers. They always have the date. And I don't think they have a header. So those are usually the footers that are automatically put in there. They can be rearranged and put other places, but they're automatically put in there in reports.
That landscape. Portrait.
The what?
That landscape. Portrait.
This is portrait. Yeah. Okay, the last part of this talks about database properties. This is good information to know if you are ever going to be the one creating databases. Then it talks about backing up and recovering. Always a good idea to have a backup of your database somewhere. Typically not stored in the same location as your regular database that you're using. So most of the time your IT department is going to have that covered, but if you're ever going to be the IT department, you need to keep that in mind. They do have you, let me close out of this. So if I go to my file ribbon, takes me to this backstage view. And then you'll see right here, it says compact and repair. You can always click that compact and repair, and it will put everything like it needs to be. And if there are any errors in it for some reason, it'll kind of clean that up. And it asks you to do that in a lot of your things, but I don't think it can grade you on that. But it's a good idea to do that. And if you have a problem being able to submit a file, you may just need to open it, do the compact and repair, and then try to submit it. I think I put this in an announcement somewhere, but maybe I just did that for my online classes. You must close your access file before you try to submit it in Cengage. You have to close out of, you don't have to close out of access, but you would go here and you could close. And so I still have my access open, but my database has been closed. Part of that is access is a weird application. It's weirder than any of the rest of them. When you go to browse for your files, yeah, here's the one I want. Well, first of all, you need to make sure you know where you're saving it to, because if you don't, very easily, I could be like, oh, well, that's what I downloaded. I saved it as the correct file name. So I know this one isn't correct. But what happens is people save these and they save these and they save these, and then they get CMF Vets, Rebecca Reese 1, Rebecca Reese 2, Rebecca Reese 3, Rebecca Reese 4. So if that happens, you need to look at the date and time stamp, and you need to find the last one. And so what you would need to do is, let's say that this has that, it's usually in parentheses, I think. Helps if you use the right keys. Okay, so it would be saved with that parentheses with the 1 on it. What you would need to do, if this is in fact the file that you need to submit, you would have to go to the one that just has your name after it, that has no number. And it was probably saved at 6 o'clock or 5 hours ago or whatever, when you first downloaded it. I don't know. So what you would have to do is just delete that one. So find that one that's not correct. It's the oldest one there, because you can't have it named the same thing. That's why you're getting the parentheses 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So find your oldest one, you can delete it, or just rename it something else without, put your name 25 or whatever. And then you can come back to this one that was the oldest one or the newest one, take your parentheses out of it, as well as the number 1, and then you can submit this one. But that's what a lot of people have problems with in Access. But if you don't have it, closed, then you see a second one that is ACCDB, and it usually has an L behind it or an L in the front of it because it's locked. And that is the one that's open, and that can sometimes keep you from being able to submit stuff properly. So always a good idea to, you have to close out of your Access file before you can submit it. So let's see how I did. In your, bring this over here. In your database reports, it'll be under the reports section. So, okay, so it'll say grading report. Oops, let me click on this. If you don't click enable editing until later, it kind of takes you back to where you were at the beginning, and then you have to redo. So I have to open my grading report again. And so I got a 78 out of 100. Probably it's counting off on adding records to the table. That's why I tell you, you're gonna get counted off for that. There's not a lot of things here that it grades, and that's why you have 11 and 12 points for each thing that is counted. So but you need to be careful, and if you know that you have done things after creating the report wizard, you're like, well, I did 3 or 4 different things after I created my report. Or what also happens is, let's say that you missed, that you got a 50 out of 100, and you come here and you're like, okay, well, that's 22. Well, where's the rest of my points? I only missed 22 on this page. How come I got a 50 out of 100? If you look down here, it'll say page 1 of 2. And so you need to be able to go to that second page to see the rest of the report. This one is short, and so it's all on one page, but I warn you about that because some people don't ever see that second page, and then they can't make those changes to make it a better score. All right, questions? Okay, I will probably make the, I will adjust the dates on your Access projects. We'll probably just make those all due. Well, I don't know. I hate to do that because you really need to have the first project done, because the second one builds on it and the third one builds on it. But maybe for the homework ones, I'll extend the dates, because I forgot to give you the Excel password. And so you guys don't have to stress about doing everything in this week. But also remember the what's it called? Computers for Technology for Success. Is that what it's called? Section. Technology for Success, computer concepts section. And there are several things in there. They're just videos that you have to watch, and then some questions you have to answer over it. So make sure you have those done before the semester ends. Okay. I know I gave you guys time to do them over the break if you had time. That was just kind of as a, some people are like, hey, I'm gonna get this knocked out and done and out of the way. But if you did, great. If you didn't, as long as you have it done by the end of the semester, it'll be fine.
Yeah, over there, should we open Excel?
I'll take a look at it. Yeah.
To-
Okay.
You sent the password already. so-
The password is limited and it is in Blackboard now.
Okay.
It is an announcement in Blackboard now. So I'll go ahead and I'll extend the due dates on the access and that technology for success. I'll just put that out there till the end of the semester because it can be a time consuming thing. And I'll try to remind you guys of that just so you're like not having to wait till the end to do it all. If you just a little bit here and there, it'll be helpful to get that done and out of the way. It's called the Technology for Success. Let me close out of this. There's, yeah. And this one, the Critical Thinking Challenge, working with OneDrive files. Notice it doesn't have an orange dot by it. That's not a graded project, but I left it there available to you because I thought some people might want to read through, work through that, just to be like, this OneDrive thing is just driving me. I don't understand how this is used. So hopefully that might be helpful to some people, but it's not a requirement that you do that one.
And that's due whenever, or not, so don't worry about that date.
No, I'm going to change the date to the end of the semester.
So we just focus on.
So
on
just-
access.
yeah.
And we got the Excel.
do your Excel test and get your access stuff done. So, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
I don't know what I did different.
Okay, so let's go to your, go up to the fields tab and go to name and caption.
Good, how are you?
Okay, so it says the owner's table should contain a field name owner ID. Okay, so see, you put the underscore in there, owner underscore ID. But you need space. And then the owner city, then on your owner city field, or just divorce anywhere. Okay, so that field size is 20, and it should be 50. Okay, so if we go to the records, is this the records the owner table?
This should be
Yeah.
great, or is it?
And so these are the records that you typed in, so. Open up here, double click on the owner street. Yeah, double click between the owner street and the owner city. So, it could be that you didn't have that expanded. Because you're supposed to,
Oh, I thought you were
Yeah.
saying, that was optional, just in case we needed to.
no, I do think they have you do it, once you get everything put in there, they have you adjust it to the widest thing. So that could be, Yeah, and so the data that's in there, still, it may be counting something wrong, but it could be that after after you typed your zip code here, you use the space bar. And so I don't know really where to direct you to look. I mean, we could go through and we could check every letter for letter and every number for number, but you may or may not find it. Okay, so this one, you may not get ever counted right, and this one, we should get that one, because it's just about the structure, it's not about the, so, yeah. So I'll short text, and we didn't change. And we didn't do the description for any of them, we did change the field size for any of them.
That we posted with that, or
That was just an extra thing that I did, but I wouldn't think that would count off for that. The thing that it might be is it might be the same thing if you double click to make the columns higher there. Because it said structural. No, on the other page, go back a little bit. Yeah, so I have no idea. Structure and data, elevating data. Calls ranger fluffy, is Tabby owner 1 or owner 2? I don't know. Let's see.
Oh, this Sam stuff is tricky.
Yes,
You know that
it is.
Once you submit, like I did, that's why I kind of got held off on the last 2 Excel ones. Because the one Excel that I did in Module 3, I submitted the work exactly how they asked me to go through and do it. When I submitted it, when it came back with my grade, it told me that I was missing this that wasn't on the correction. So that kind of like messed me up with that.
Brandon, owner 2 and then 1. Is that what you got?
Yes.
How did you spell Labrador?
Labrador.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That all looks, I mean, I couldn't see how you spelled Labrador because my glasses didn't allow for that. But so